So I'd like to echo some of Kevin's comments as a former student of Mike's. When I was thinking about what I might want to say up here, actually, was thinking it would be fun to say what a lousy advisor he was. Come up with all kinds of funny stories about it, but it was kind of hard. He was actually a great advisor. And so my story is that I was a graduate student. I was taking a class from Misha Brain in dynamical systems, and Misha had to go away for a few days, and he said that he was going to have Mike Boyle come and talk about symbolic dynamics for a couple of days, and that Mike Boyle was one of the best in the world in symbolic dynamics. Actually, he said he was the best in the world, but I didn't want to offend anybody. And he came and he gave a couple of great lectures, very clear. And at that moment, I decided this was my guy, and I wanted to work with him. And so, like Kevin, I came into his office. Unlike Kevin, we didn't talk about sex. And we talked about. I asked him, what might I work on, and Mike pulls out this sheet with about a dozen problems on them, and starts talking about each one by one. I have the feeling this was just a list of problems that Mike hadn't gotten around to solving yet, and in case a graduate student came by, he would pull the sheet out. This sheet actually has grown and turned into a paper called Open Problems in Symbolic Dynamics, which now consists of several dozen problems, 40 or so, maybe, something around there. So great source of problems, and all of them wonderful things to work on. I just sort of randomly picked, I don't know, number 3 on the list, and it was a great problem, and really helped establish me as a mathematician in my career. The other thing that was great about having Mike as your advisor is he was always available. Unless it was the early morning, he was literally always there. And so if you had a question at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, you could go down to Mike's office, and he was, as many people have mentioned, very generous with his time, which for a graduate student was great. I don't know if Roxanne would necessarily agree, but for a graduate student it was great. I mean, people have talked about his sort of encyclopedia of knowledge about symbolic dynamics. Basically any question he would know something about. And so it was wonderful as a graduate student to be able to have him down the hall as a resource. And of course he loved to talk mathematics. It didn't matter. He would spend an hour or so with me at just about any time. And people who know Mike know he's willing to talk mathematics at any time. And so I learned there were 2 sort of dangerous propositions with Mike. One was to have him as a passenger in your car, because here he was talking to me about math, and I was trying to concentrate on what he was saying, and pretty soon you're running red lights and missing turns and so forth. The other one, as many people alluded to, which is dangerous with Mike, is going on a hike, because you start off talking about math, and that starts to wear you down a little bit, and next thing you know, of course he walks twice as fast as you're prepared to walk, and wants to go many times further than you're prepared to walk, at least for me. So, but those were some, Mike's always ready to talk math, and again, that was great as a graduate student to have. There was a third thing that I was going to mention, which I don't recall at the moment.
Score one.
Okay, take a break. Yes, now I recall. Mike's papers have really nice exposition, and he has kind of high standards for his students as far as the exposition goes. So I remember I learned this when I gave him an early draft of my thesis, and this is how he put it. He said that Well, this is kind of like a stone that needs to be needs to be polished into the gem that will eventually become. And it was a nice way of saying, but afterwards I realized he was just compared my thesis to a rock. But eventually, after I gave him draft after draft after draft, I think I wore him down because at some point he said to me, Nick, I'm only going to read finitely many drafts. Shortly thereafter, plans were made for me to graduate. I think. So Mike, happy birthday. Thanks very much for the great problems, for always being there, and for having such high standards. And I hope that if you ever want to go for a hike, that you'll find a good partner.